Zubair, you are not audible. Have you started?
Sir, I had some issue with my audio. Now it's okay. So let's start.
Start afresh now.
Okay. I welcome all the participants and our esteemed panelists for this session today on vocal for local and how Indian SMEs can reduce their dependency on the raw material imports. And this webinar is being organized jointly by Power to SME and Vadvani Foundation. I hope the discussions and the deliberations of today's session will help the SMEs largely aligning their raw material procurement, especially from import sources. And before we start today, I request all the participants to kindly mute themselves for the entire duration of the session. And please switch off your webcams and videos and do not present the screen. This will disturb the flow uh, discussion. Today, have with us a highly seasoned panel of subject matter specialists. We have Dr. H. former CMD NSIC and Director External Affairs Power to SME as a session chair. We also have Mr. Sudhir Jha from All India Manufacturers Association, Manufacturers Organization, and Mr. Vivek Prasad from Avalon Consulting. And formally start the discussion today, I request few minutes of your time to introduce the organizers, Power to SME and West Money Foundation in very brief. Power to SME, we established in year 2012. We are a 9-year-old company founded by Mr. R. Narayan. He's also CEO. And Power to SME is India's first B2B digital ecosystem, and with a very innovative business model which eliminates intermediaries in a supply chain of raw material deliveries to the manufacturing SMEs. And this is the Power to SME ecosystem. We have four verticals. Power to SME, it deals in raw material procurement and sourcing. Finance Me, it connects the SMEs with the empaneled financial partners. SME Shops is the online B2B marketplace for MRO industrial goods. And BizFund is our NPFC, which deals in credit solution for raw material procurement. So these are the key product categories that Power to SME as a raw material sourcing business deals in. We deal in steel, polymer, paints, yarn, chemicals, and many other categories of products. The key vertical of industrial segment that we cater to include auto components, electronics, engineering, agricultural tools, textile, plastics, and many more. Our vertical Finance Me, it connects the SMEs who work with us to the empaneled partner financial institution. We do our in-house KYC, and we recommend these SMEs to the financial partners, and they onboard them basis the transaction history of these SMEs have with Power to SME. And the entire cycle, which usually takes around 25 days, is reduced to just 8 days through this Finance Me model. This is our B2B e-marketplace by the name SME Shops. We have here around 1,500 and vendors, 2,000 plus brands are listed. Over 110 lakh of products, industrial products are listed here. We are shipping to around 900 cities. And with response to the market demand under COVID crisis, SME shops have come the entire range of COVID-19 essential products, including thermometers, masks, safety goggles, and many more. So both the SMEs and the corporates can buy, sell these COVID essential items in bulk quantities through SME shops. Our NBFC Biz Funds is a very young, dynamic financial company which offers finances for the purchase, acquisition, expansion, and temporary cash deficits of the Indian MSMEs. And uh, we are funded by some of the most reputed venture funds, including Inventors, Kalari, Excel. Mr. Nandan Nilekani is one of our investors. We are a World Bank funded company through its financial arm, International Finance Corporation. These are the list of awards and accolades we have won since our inception. And it is worth mentioning that we also won Forbes India Leadership Award under outstanding startup category. And during this COVID lockdown, Power to SME assembled the best minds in the industry to present the more holistic and comprehensive solutions to the current situation, challenges, and issues being faced Indian MSMEs. And in this direction, we have partnered with several industry bodies, organizations, institutions, and as well as other stakeholders, corporate from corporate world. To name some, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, CII, IMO, IIA, CASIA. We have been working very closely with them to understand and the core areas of issues and challenges being faced by SMEs, and to provide them with the right guidance, counseling, and knowledge transfer on various subject of substance. These are our geographical presence. We are present in 11 cities across the country, and we have offices, warehouse in around 5 of them. This is our social media presence, and uh, regarding that, our co-partner Vadhwani Foundation. Vadhwani Foundation has a flagship program by the name Vadhwani Advantage, which help SMEs to empower to address their growth and survive strategies. And how they do it, they basically cater you these four services to connect with the coaches, business coaches, their consultant, professional consultant to look at your business strategies and business processes. They connect you with the right investors and your clientele with the corporate world. They This is the journey they take you through. They understand your burning areas, your core areas of problem. They took you through the journey they have designed through various DIY tools, which is do-it-yourself tools. They connect you with the advisors, the counselors for the right knowledge, right counseling about your business processes and your market positioning. And it is a 3 months program, and they took you through this program and connect you with the entire of stakeholders in SME ecosystem. So these are the areas where Vadhwani Advantage program can support you with. They help you with customer segmentation, customer penetration, market positioning, your product innovation, your how processes can be improved, diversification channels, geographies you may serve, and your value chain propositions. And the best part is they do not take any equity in your business. They do not charge you any fees. They only connect you with the mentors, the business coaches, consultants, which work with you on pro bono, initially on pro bono basis, and then charge you very competitive fees. So this was all about the organizers. And if you have any queries to be asked basis the discussion that we are going to have, you are requested to submit your queries on the chat box. And these queries will be taken to the session chair in the Q&A session for the answers from the session chair and from other panelists. And I also encourage you to kindly fill the feedback form which is circulated on the chat box. It helps us understanding your issues and your concerns in a better way so that we can pursue them even after the webinar. And also subscribe to our daily newsletter, SME Khabar. The subscription link is also available on chat box. So with these words, I request Dr. H.P. Kumar to kindly take the session, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Zumair. Thank you for a very detailed introduction about the organizations. In fact, the issue today that we are going to deliberate is also very important. Let me welcome the distinguished guests, panelists, and also convey my greetings to all the participants. In fact, Vocal for Local is the recent initiative taken by the Government of India, announced by the Honorable Prime Minister, and we all are supporting this Vocal for Local and trying to find ways. In fact, how do we reduce our dependence on huge imports that we have from various countries, particularly countries like China. Well, raw material is one of the components of many products which we are dependent on. Raw materials, of course, all kinds of raw materials that our industry is importing, and starting from metal, steel, aluminium, copper, zinc, and petrochemicals, APIs, drugs and pharmaceuticals products, raw material, and cotton, yarn, chemicals, many other products. All these raw material, electrical components, electronic components, telecom components, auto components, all these serve as raw material, in fact, for our industry in the SME sector. So huge number of MSMEs are dependent on these imports. That is one thing. And second thing is vocal for local is basically for replacing the imported products which are being consumed by the consumers here, consumed or utilized and used by the consumers. They have become used to it. We all have become used to it almost in daily life that we spend. More than half of the products that we use are almost imported, and most of them imported from China. So how do we indigenize them? How do we substitute imported products by our indigenously made products? And it is not only substituting for our own consumption, but also trying to build our capacities of our industry to export. Because we have a negative trade balance, a huge negative trade balance, current account deficit. So naturally, we have to look at the long-term prospects and take policies for building the capacity for industry, for export development also, and for enlarging our export. So both go hand in hand. You see, the moment you think of import restrictive policies, I'm not saying that we should do anything against the WTO regime, because WTO regime has certain limitations cast upon the governments. It is only through the permitted tariff barriers and also the quantitative restrictions. These two measures are available with the governments on reciprocal basis. You can't have one-sided barriers, tariff barriers, or quantitative restrictions. So it has to be mutually agreed, and it should not look like as if you are deliberately restricting the free flow of imports of any product. So that is the philosophy with which WTO regime works, and we are a member of the WTO regime for international trade. So the government has limited wherewithals to restrict. It is the industry, it is the consumers, it is the people who have to really gradually shift to the indigenously made products, and use the indigenous raw materials, use the indigenously made products, so that the dependence on these imports from other countries, particularly countries like China, where we have problem of late, can be reduced. That is one thing. Second thing is, how do we build our capacities? It is not easy. Saying is easy that we go for vocal for local and it happens overnight. It doesn't. We have to have a preparation, we have to have a plan, we have to really guide the people, train the people, give them inputs, facilitate, and create an environment and an ecosystem where consumers as well as the industry, MSMEs particularly, are attracted, and they have the facilitation to go for indigenous products. Now, it can't be only sentimental. It has to be, through the physical facilitation. It has to be through the financial facilitation. It has to be through the institutional facilitation. It has to be through the policy framework, and it has to be through the incentives. So while we give incentives to the exporters, we have no incentives to the importers. Now, how do we give incentives to the importers? It is through the disincentives. So another thing is, we are talking of import substitution or vocal for local for a lot of products. I understand 3,000 products or almost 3,000 products are being imported as of now. So many people are asking us, which are these products? So can we start a new enterprise? Can we start? You give us the list. Which is the machinery which is required? What is the raw material which is required? We can produce these items. You see, you ask every industry, we can produce these items. Why are we importing? Why are we importing the furniture? Why are we importing the tapestry? Why are we importing the electrical components, switches and Diwali items and Holi items? Why are we importing these shoes and rubber products, cheap products, packaging material? Why are we importing all these products, fans and electrical bulbs and all these things can be manufactured? So they say we can do that. What we need to do is prepare an ecosystem, provide them, plant and machinery, equipment, and credit facilitation. That is very important. If new industry or new business starts and we don't have money for investment, we don't have bank limits for, we don't sanction the bank limits or credit facilities for them. So it is difficult for any new entrepreneur to take the whole risk. And apart from that, the guidance. Now, how do we give guidance? A lot of people come to me as to, for asking which product we should start. So they want idea. So who will give them idea? Who will give them initial, understanding of a business, a product, a business cycle, an enterprise, and then what is the investment required? What is the infrastructure required? How do they prepare themselves? What is the future? The confidence. So all these things have to be imparted to the new enterprises also. In any case, it is very much required in our country because we have huge unemployment issue. There are a lot of people waiting, in fact, to become entrepreneur because there are no jobs. I mean, jobs are there, but limited jobs, not for all. If everybody asks for job, get job, who is going to give the job? The jobs have to come from the new businesses and expansion of existing businesses. Only when the new employment opportunities can be created. So it is all related. See, when we say vocal for local, all these issues are related. You have to have more enterprises. You have to have capacity building of the existing enterprises. You have to have education and guidance to these people as to how do we shift from import to the domestic manufactured goods, and how do we change the culture of the people to remain dependent only on the cheaper and items, then providing inputs to them, concessional credit and marketing avenues. Now take the case of this import substitution. When we are talking of 3,000 products, I know a lot of people do not even know which are the products. I named a few of them, but if you see the list, it's a huge list. And so first thing is to prepare this list and put it in the public domain. So these are the 3,000 items, and then attract people as to who are the people who are ready to invest, and then these 3,000 items, how much investment is required for setting up the manufacturing facility for each of the products. So at least people should know that this product I can start manufacturing in 10 lakhs rupees investment. This product I can start manufacturing in 50 lakhs rupees. And this is the total demand in the country. So at least we should assess the total demand also. So all these basic figures, the names of the products, how much investment is required, what is the market size in the country, who are the other people who are manufacturing in the country. So a market analysis. This information needs to be put into the public place. Once it is placed in the people's forum, they will pick and they will select. They will come forward. They will make up their mind. Once you have the 10 things before you, and the comparative requirement of manufacturing, and then your own capacity. So you can relate your interest and capacity with the expected level of requirement. So this is the first thing. Second thing which I have been advising, in fact we have discussed with the government also, that we should be organizing now exhibitions and vendor development programs and buyer seller meets for the imported products only. How do we replace the imported? Which are the imported products which we can exhibit? Because these products are available in the country. Even with the customs department also, all these products are available because they take out 1 or 2, 3 items for sample and testing when the imports take place. So all these products can be demonstrated at various fora, and then people can be invited to look at them and see whether they can start manufacturing of these products. Now coming to the raw material, which is again a very important issue. There are other ways to reduce our dependence on the imported raw material. One thing is, of course, developing our own capacities, whether it is steel and aluminium or copper or zinc or plastics. I think the capacities are gradually going up, but it takes time. These are long-term core sector projects which take huge investment. The steel plant takes a lot of investment, 50,000 crore, and a plastic manufacturing like LDP, HDP, like Reliance is manufacturing, is a huge petrochemical plant which takes huge investment. But what is happening is that whatever is the existing capacity created, even that also is not available to the small users, MSMEs particularly, and they have to buy alternative products from the market at a higher price or import. So that becomes a very difficult proposition. So these are some of the issues which we thought that we can discuss today. This is a very important aspect, in fact, for the manufacturing sector, particularly the MSME sector. And we have to discuss this and find ways. So we thought that we can invite some of the industry experts who are who are domain experts, who have the experience, have been running the industry, or advising on strategy to the other MSMEs and bigger industries. So I am happy that we have 2 experts today. We would like to hear them one by one, and then after they have given their addresses in 5 minutes, 10 minutes each, we will have an open discussion. How do we go about, and we can exchange our views. And lastly, we will take questions from the audience. The questions which have been listed on the chat box will be taken up, and any other question which is required to be addressed. So let me first invite Mr. Sudhir Jha. Mr. Jha is a very experienced industry man. He runs his own industry. He is the owner of Mechem and Company, and a senior member of the Governing Council of All India Manufacturers Organization. And he is a strategic planner basically for new business enterprises, and participates in various other forums, also industry forums, and contributes very substantially. For example, MSME Development Forum and RISE Foundation, which is of course an NGO, and then All India Confederation of Small and Medium Industries Association, Delhi Productivity Council. So Mr. Jha has heard, in fact, my opening and context. He knows the issue very well. He has been associated with the industry. So Mr. Jha, over to you for your overall view on this subject that we are going to discuss today. Mr. Jha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. This is a great pleasure and privilege to share my viewpoints with you before this August presence. I am also thankful to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to participate in this webinar and put my views across. The topic for this webinar is very, very relevant in present times, especially for the MSME enterprises, young entrepreneurs, and startup units. Sir, you have rightly set the tone of this webinar, and you have given a vivid picture of exactly what is the situation which we are into currently and what are our limitations being into the WTO regime, and also added to it, presently in this digital age, this world has become a global village. We can't live in isolation. So recently, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has given a clarion call for an Atmanirbhar Bharat in his address to the nation last month. And along with that, he has added a strong slogan, as you also mentioned, sir, vocal for local. Now we have to see it in the right context and the right perspectives, that what it actually means, what the government means when they say make in India, vocal for local, Atmanirbhar Bharat, startup India, stand up India, and all these things have been a buzzword since past few years. So presently, after this COVID crisis came, and government has several announcements, most of the units got paralyzed due to the sudden lockdown, and the entire world is struggling. So at this point of time, it is very, very important that we must have a rational view of everything, whatever we think, whatever we experience, whatever we wish to do forward. Now, presently, we have seen that there is an undercover tirade which has developed amongst the masses against the products that we import. And mainly it got targeted towards our immediate neighbor China. This has also gained grounds because of the Chinese behavior at Indian borders, and also for the fact that China has been declared guilty of manufacturing and spreading coronavirus across the globe. Now, given this situation, the million-dollar question that needs an immediate answer: how plausible is it to talk about insulating ourselves from the influx of materials from the global trading world? This is a very, very important point. And as rightly you have set the tone, sir, and you have mentioned in your opening remarks, there are various issues related to it, not just one or few. So basically, before we go on to any statistics, data, and figures, most of us know what kind of environment we are into and what is the present nature of business we are into, and what are the various trade and commerce activities we are undertaking and which we have been doing internally at a domestic front or externally in terms of imports and exports. Basically, today, I'm thankful to the organizers that they have pointed very relevant topics for this webinar, that impact of import substitution, how it can happen, opportunities across industrial segment, and indigenization, most importantly, of various items into the manufacturing sector in India, how it can happen. Basically, I have few points, although I don't want to draw more statistics and figures into discussions now. The time is limited and we want to make best use of it. Still then, as we have been talking about China, with whom we have the maximum trade at present, we must view few things importantly. That India imports almost 7 times more from China than it exports to it. India has a huge trade deficit with China, and it's largest with any country. See, in 2018-19 only, if we see, India's exports to China were meager $16.7 billion, while we imported $70.3 billion. So we had a trade deficit of 53.6 billion. Now, suppose we want to discontinue our business with China. What are the areas into which we are doing business with China at present? We need to look into these things. And as rightly Dr. Kumar said, that there are many things. When we talk about import substitution, it doesn't necessarily mean replicating the present business practices. Uttar Pradesh government, I am very happy to quote here, that they few years back came up with one district, one product initiative. Now, whatever skill sets are there with a long-lasting business, which has been there into various small sectors and small quarters of various Indian territories across different regions. So why can't we think about making some ecosystem out of it? And once the products are available, the consumption pattern in the domestic market gets triggered accordingly. You see, I have been telling this off and on that unlike other countrymen, unlike people in other countries, we Indians are slightly different. While they think with their mind, we start thinking from our heart. So, if at all few things touch our heart, really we go after it. Secondly, we have for the last few decades, not to say just few years, while we have been complacent, and we have shown our complacency on many accounts when this world has really been transforming. And in early 90s in India also, we have taken a step forward to globalize ourselves. So we have taken a very, very short route, and that only has led us to this situation that either we have ended up only as a consumer market, or mostly in the manufacturing sector, since from the All India Manufacturers Organization, and we are celebrating 75th anniversary this year. It was founded by late M. Visvesvaraya 75 years back, who had been an architect of modern India in many sense, a great engineer. So we have several state boards, zones, and we are with the several associations trying to find out that what actually is percolating on the ground. During this lockdown period, say 1 week, the last week of May, we have conducted extensive survey on ground of the MSME units. And it comprised almost approximately 50,000 MSME units from various regions, various clusters, various industries, So we will share all those details later on, that what were the points which we have really asked in it, and what has been the response for that matter into it. But now to come to the point, and really the tone which Dr. Kumar has said, and to take it forward, I would say that presently India is on that cusp where the entire world is revolving. So this COVID has made this entire world to revolve. This is the time we must look inwardly to think and evolve. And once we do that, definitely we have that will to work, we have that will to win, and we will also be able to find our forward path ahead, that with what kind of activities we can really in a domestic manner groom ourselves well, that will trigger the domestic consumptions. Then in the tech environment, what are the various aspects?
Thank you, Jaji. Thank you. I think
Upon
we will come back to you, in fact, for all these discussions about tech environment and other things at a later stage. Let me bring in
Right.
Vivek Prasad. In fact, he has been waiting for quite some time. Well, your observations with regard to, the point that you made, I like that point very much, that we should be basically, a rational view. Should not jump on, on a issue which is, not that easy to implement. And takes time. So we should prepare for vocal for local. We should prepare for indigenization and plan. Not that we jump immediately and then land into a position where we don't have either either that or this. So I like that statement, that we should be rational, because the times are difficult as of now. In fact, there is need to do a lot of policy changes with regard to these imports, indigenization, local markets, development, and I'm sure that over a period of time we will come across this and go to the new regime. So new regime of policy making, of course, new regime of policies and new regime of environment where these benefits can be made available to the MSMEs through indigenization and through vocal for local program. So let me bring in Mr. Vivek Prasad. He's another expert in industry. He's basically strategy involved in strategies and management consulting. More than 15 years experience, of course, and basic experience in strategy and performance improvement consulting in core manufacturing verticals, particularly capital goods, engineering, and power. So these are all areas where a lot of indigenization is required, and vocal for local is very much applicable in this case. So let me bring in Mr. Vivek Prasad. Vivekji, you have 10 minutes, in fact, to provide your opening views on that, and then we will have deliberations after. Over to you, Mr. Vivek. Mr. Vivek Prasad. Are you able to hear me, Mr. Vivekji? You are not audible. I think you are muted. Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's okay. Please carry on.
Okay. I'm sorry. I think there was a problem with my audio. So thank you, Mr. Kumar, and a very good afternoon to all of you around this call. And I want to thank you for the opportunity. As Mr. Kumar said, I come from a consulting background where our objective is generally to help companies which are grappling with the kind of...
Vivekji, can you come closer to the microphone, because your voice is little...
for you?
Yeah, now you can come closer.
Yeah. So as I was saying, I come from a consulting background where our objective is to generally help companies who are grappling with the kind of issues that we are talking about today. I think this has already been said, but at the risk of repeating, the whole vocal for local call is not very different from some of the other things that have been said in the past about Make in India and so on, where the idea of reducing our reliance on imports has been mooted for a long time. However, I think we need to be careful in how we approach this, because these calls are at best emotional, geopolitical, whereas business generally does not work on these aspects. Business works on rationality, business works on good economic strength and good economic sense. So the very fact that China is one of our largest import sources, almost $70 billion worth of imports over the last 5 years annually is what we get, and these feed into some of the most important industry sectors in our country, whether they are excuse me, automotive, capital goods, consumer electronics, chemicals, pharmaceuticals. All of these value chains in our country are heavily dependent on the Chinese supply chains. Now, shifting supply chains is not going to be easy. There are many problems related to this. However, I think there are two important things that work in our favor right now as far as this vocal for local initiative is concerned. The first one is that it's come at a time when the Chinese supply chains have been hit very hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Right? Their country has faced a lot of lockdowns. Many factories have been closed. A lot of their supply chains have been disrupted. Right? And there's also this whole feeling that the virus seems to have originated from China. There are lots of opinions around this. I don't think there's any point getting into that. But the impact of this is that there is a certain anti-China wave that is seen in countries all over the world. Right? This works to our advantage because India is seen as one of the other manufacturing powerhouses in the world. Maybe we are not completely at par or comparable to China, but we are definitely seen as one of the front runners. So this is one thing that works in our favor. The other thing that works in our favor is something that has been going on for quite some time, which is China's declining superiority in manufacturing. There was a time, maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago, when China used to be a real superpower, and their costs, their value chains, their ability to raise capital, their environmental concerns, a lot of things were going for them. And on the basis of this, they became an export powerhouse. But there is a lot of that's come at a cost. And so what has happened because of that is that there has been rising prosperity. Obviously, because of rising prosperity, their cost base has gone up significantly. So in China, there's the East Coast where the cost structure is very high because of better quality of living and people's expectations going up and so on. Whereas in the hinterlands, of course, you still have a smaller cost base. But there are other concerns like environmental concerns, pollution. They have done away with a lot of export tax incentives, because of which China's earlier superiority in global manufacturing has come down. Right? So the difference that used to exist between Indian manufacturing and Chinese manufacturing has somewhat been bridged. So because of these two reasons, there is definitely an opportunity. Right? Now, because of the timing of this, that India is slowly. India has not been hit as hard by the COVID pandemic as some of the other countries. China has been hit hard. China's superiority has been declining. So until China finds a way to bounce back completely, there is definitely a small window of opportunity for Indian companies to step into this vacuum that has been created. Now, this could be for raw materials. This could be for sub-assemblies or components. It could even be for products. I think the important thing is for Indian companies to assess their strengths and play to their strengths. And the Indian SME sector definitely has an opportunity here. I think what is most important is to make sure that Indian SMEs, one, understand or identify the sectors in which they can really make an impact. There's no point going after everything and anything. In strategy consulting, we talk about what not to do being as important as what to do. So I think Indian companies, Indian SMEs need to make a very fair assessment of where their strengths lie. Which sectors can they be globally competitive? Which sectors can they sustain to be competitive and act in those sectors? And the second thing that needs to be done is that a set of enablers need to be put in place to make sure that these SMEs can participate and compete in the segment. Right? So if these two things come together, and these need to come together very quickly, we do not have a lot of time, because the COVID pandemic is here to stay. Whatever lockdown and whatever impact of COVID we see today is going to continue, and people are going to realize that we cannot wait for this to end. Life has to get back to business as usual. That is going to happen all over the world. So once that happens, we'll not be having this opportunity to participate. So for us to make sure that we have this foot in the door, we have to act now, and we have to have all of these enablers come together. And then I think there is definitely an opportunity for the Indian SMEs to participate in this vocal for local call. Let me leave that as my opening comment, and maybe we can address specific questions as they come up. Back to you, Dr. Kumar. Mr. Kumar, sorry.
I think very well said, Mr. Vivek. Very, very, perfectly worded, that our SME sector and the industry as such has to first assess their own capabilities and then make a strategic decision whether really which are the products, which are the areas where they would like to enter with the capacity, with the wherewithals available, and also with the capacity to in fact produce and enter those areas. Not that emotionally you take a decision to enter each and every area and then fail. And as I said earlier, you're neither there nor here. And the point of input enablers that you said is, I think, very, very relevant. And without the input enablers, which can come, of course, from the policy making as well as from the organizations which are responsible for providing inputs. Whether it is a framework for ease of doing business, or inputs by way of physical inputs like funding, credit or capital, taxation issues. All these enablers also have to be put in place. And then, of course, the speed that you mentioned, all this has to happen quickly, because otherwise, it will be, like the momentum that is building up now will get lost. And then people will go as usual to the old style of, working and living. So very useful inputs, I think, very, the MSME sector can get a lot of, advantage of using these inputs. So let me come back to Mr. Jha for a question. Mr. Jha, you are there with us?
Right, sir.
So you said you did some study and survey of 50,000 units.
Right, sir.
Can you explain a bit as to what was the issue and what is the results in brief, a couple of minutes?
Sure, sir. Actually, we have conducted a survey on 3 parameters. Firstly, during lockdown period, and we are still to come out of it. So it was health check primarily. Then operational parameters. And thirdly, the financial issues. So I would like to tell you the points which categorically we went around surveying in health check. That is, continue to do well and not impacted. So overall, 7% was the response that they continue to do well, not affected. Then we'll take 3 months to recover. 18% of the responders said that it will take at least 3 months to recover, while 29% were of the opinion that it will take at least 6 months to recover. And almost 9% said that it will take almost 1 year to recover from the present phase of crisis. But astonishing fact is that 32% of the MSME units responded that they are beyond recovery. So that's a big number. If out of 50,000 of the MSME units, 32% of them feel that they are beyond recovery, sir, I think this is something to look into at all levels. Second was, sir, operational parameters. So in the operational parameters, what are the requirements? Basically, man, money, and material on these three index. So people have been facing crisis at present on all three accounts. Manpower, since there is a huge migration of the labor, so that has become an issue. In money, although government has come up with some announcements, but that is covering only few segment of the people who are into the organized sector of the banking and the finance. But large number of MSME units, they do their own with other finance arrangements. So what will they do? And thirdly, sir, material. This is very important. Now, when we are talking about the raw materials, so in the present situation, when entire supply chain got disrupted, many of the MSME units are finding it very difficult to source the raw materials. So we have put up a proposal to the Ministry of MSME that just like ration card, if they can consider issuing a MSME material card to the MSME units. And sir, you had been there in NSIC, you turned the complete face of it during your 8 years of tenure. So a lot of things you have done there, sir. This also can be taken up through NSIC as a nodal agency, that they make different cluster arrangements for the procurements and rationing of the materials. So that will make some alignments into this matter. And third and most importantly is, sir, the finance. So these three surveys which we have carried, and the reports are not encouraging, sir. If the present MSME units, they are struggling on ground, then any new proposition, how it will be taken up and how it can really move on ground, that is again a question to be seen.
Yeah, I think good inputs, Mr. Jha. Your suggestions are well appreciated. You are a friend of MSME sector, so all your suggestions would be naturally for the help and benefit of the MSME sector. We have taken up some of these issues earlier with the government, and the suggestion that you said materials card, like ration card, we had taken it up in a different manner with the government, because if you talk of materials card like ration card, they say that you are going to go to the retrograde step of rationing of the material distribution, like it used to happen 30-40 years back, when steel used to be available only from SITC, Small Industries Development Corporation, in a limited manner, and there used to be quotas. So I said, we don't need all these quotas and rationing and all that. What you can do is, there are aggregators like Power to SME, and there are other aggregators like NSIC. So what you can do is that for distribution, for providing, for selling and giving it to the micro and small enterprises and medium enterprises, you should provide from your network. There are big companies operating like Steel Authority and Indian Oil Corporation and Rashtriya Ispat Nigam Limited and NALCO and all these public sector Coal India Limited, Hindustan Copper and Hindustan Zinc, and a lot of companies in the government sector which are producing bulk raw materials. So at least a portion of it should be channelized through the micro, small and medium enterprises through some institutional framework.
Right, sir.
At a proper pricing, not that, because as of now what is happening is our Indian companies, whether they are in government or private sector, are also now competing with the world. If you increase tariff for the imports, our companies, Indian companies, also increase the tariffs, prices. So suddenly, the steel price has gone up from 28,000 rupees to 50,000 because you increase the imported, tariffs. So your suggestion is, of course, in that line, and the purpose is that, as Mr. Vivek also mentioned, enablers. So this is one of the enablers, that making, helping the MSMEs and the industry to access to raw materials at better terms with cheaper prices and better credit terms.
Right. Well said. Actually, we also meant that only, that there should be some framework and some aggregation in these matters, and that has to go very deep from the grassroots for the vocal for local also. And for the existing units, if any framework is there, then it can be extended for many other areas as well.
Vivekji, coming back to you, my point was that there has been a lot of talk about shifting of Chinese industry to India, and you also mentioned in your talk that there is, as of now, there is anti-China wave in the world, and the uh, people, by and large, the industry particularly has understood that they should have some alternative arrangements also for setting up the manufacturing plants, because the total dependence on China is not good for the whole world as well as for those countries and for those companies. So how do you think, because we have been talking about this for a long time, and everybody is suggesting that we should bring in a lot of companies from China. They are going to Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and all those countries. We are not able to. How do we do? What are the specific measures, maybe two or three, that as a strategy you feel the government of India should announce and take, so that these companies can be attracted to shift their bases towards India, either shifting or maybe taking a decision for new and setting up new industries whenever they take a decision like this. Over to you, Vivekji.
Yeah, I think there are two parts to this answer, and I'd like to talk about it as the first part being, how do we look at what opportunities can we shift away from China? And that's a big question, because obviously it's not going to be possible to do 100% there, right? So that's one part of the question. The second part of the question is really, what do we need to do to be able to enable that shift, right? So if I take the first part, which is how do we decide on what kind of sectors or what kind of businesses are are likely to look at shifting away from China? I think there are three aspects there, or 3 points which we could look at, or three filters. I think one thing that we need to understand is that companies that have set up businesses in China have invested huge monies there. They have elaborate supply chains, they have strong networks. Many of them are actually JVs with the Chinese government, because that's how the Chinese companies operate. And they also have other advantages, like the ability to source raw materials, at a better rate, and so on. So there are roots that these companies have put into the ground where it will be very difficult to uproot them. So any such businesses which is not standalone but requires an ecosystem, and companies have spent money and invested time and effort in building this ecosystem, they are not going to abandon so quickly. So they may look for alternatives in the medium or in the near term, but ultimately they will go back to those investments and try to recover them, right? So we need to look for sectors where there is no ancillary, or there is no elaborate ecosystem that's required, but which is more standalone. So that is one parameter to look at shifting businesses away from China. The second parameter is about access to raw materials or technology. A lot of these companies, China has a very strong resource base. They have raw material availability, of very various kinds. It's a very resource-rich nation, and that lends them a certain competitiveness. So any businesses which require a certain raw material or access to a certain technology will obviously not be possible to shift away, because these things take time to develop, and this is not something that India can do quickly. So that is that is the second parameter that we could look at. Any such opportunities we need to stay away from. The third is actually a positive, which is to say that if there are markets, if there are markets or opportunities where the opportunity is not just domestic, not just a large Indian market, but a market where India can also export into, then those could be other businesses that we need to look at. Because ultimately, and I'll come to that when we talk about the enablers, there is a certain amount of scale that will be required for us to be able to compete, and that scale might not come up with just a domestic market. There will be a need to look at larger additional markets, and having an export opportunity adds to that. So there are ways in which we can look at identifying businesses which can be shifted away. India relies on China for a lot of sub-assemblies, electronics, tools, machine components, commodity chemicals, fine chemicals, pharma APIs, and so on. And all of these go into a range of industries, machinery manufacturing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, FMCG, and so on. And all of these sectors are likely to be impacted severely from any sort of imports where there is imports from China. Now, if we are able to do any sort of import substitution in these, and obviously we cannot look at the sector as a whole, we need to look at specific opportunities in a sector. We need to drill one level deeper to understand, because it might not be possible for all the opportunities in a sector, but there might be some white spaces, some hidden gems which we can take away. And these could all be opportunities for SMEs. And that will dovetail into the whole vocal for local initiative. But having said that, there are things that need to be done. And to my mind, there are basically three enablers that need to come in for the SMEs to be able to do this. The first and the most important thing, I think, is scale. I think what we will see is that India has traditionally and systematically kept a lot of businesses small. And this is something that has happened partly because of legislation and so on, and partly because of the way our businesses have operated. But this needs to change. The way what China has done differently than India is that they have always gone after scale. They've built scale businesses, and therefore we need to have scale players, because scale allows you to invest in technology. It allows you access to sophisticated markets which you might not be able to access as a smaller player. It allows you to attract global interest. It allows you to attract talent. So scale is something that SMEs need to look at. The second enabler is technology. I think for a long time, we've worked on the principle that we have cheap labor or we have human capital, but that needs to change. It's time to change that game. We are an IT power. We have a strong startup ecosystem. I'm based in Bangalore, where there is a large number of startups doing very pioneering work in very interesting fields. But this is not being used to impact our SME sector. A lot of this information is not available. A lot of this engagement between SMEs and the startups does not happen. So there is a need for some sort of a platform for this to happen. And if that happens, then we can be world-class in our product engineering, production systems, supply chains, distribution, and so on. So these are our strengths, and we have to be able to play to our strengths to be self-reliant. So accessing and harnessing technology is a second enabler. And the third one, which will actually make all of the above possible, is access to capital. See, capital is the lifeblood of business. Without access to the right amount and the right kind of capital, businesses cannot realize their true potential. So whether it is through equity or debt or any other kind of capital structure, we need to be able to support entrepreneurs. I was on a panel a couple of days back where we were talking about capital for food processing for the small and medium businesses. And there are a host of initiatives which are available from the government and from other bodies. So there is a need for this information to be disseminated and made available. So I think if we can do these three things, which is scale, technology, and access to capital, and create these enablers, then there's definitely a chance for the SMEs to take up the opportunities we talked about.
Sir, you are mute.
I just went on mute. I just finished. So
I think no, I could hear you fully and very well said. In fact, these enablers are very important. The enablers that you mentioned, the three enablers, are really key, in fact, to the success of the entire program of indigenization and vocal for local. So, coming back to Mr. Jha, I have another question for you, Jaji. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
So, you said that UP government started ODOP program.
Right,
One district, one product. How is that helpful in our indigenization program and for vocal for local? Do you think any linkage with that? And what is this ODOP where, what is exactly government contribution, in fact, in doing that? How are they doing that one district, one program?
Sir, actually, in various districts, whatever has been the traditional work happening, so government is on to reviving them. And somewhere place-wise, somewhere pottery is there, somewhere silk product activities are there. So all these things, government there is a specific task force working under Ministry of MSME in the Uttar Pradesh government. So they have identified various areas, and after that, shortly I would say that after having uncovered this business into their state itself, they have been able to increase the exports as well. So this is a wide topic, sir. I will be very happy to share the slides and to send more details on it. And I would suggest all the audience to kindly go through all the details of ODOP. That is a very specific program which has been undertaken by government of Uttar Pradesh, and central government has now endorsed it to the other states as well, sir. Sir, you are mute, sir.
Yes. What I was trying to understand is that I think there are a lot of number of districts in UP
Right, sir.
which are traditionally producing a huge quantity of material.
Right, sir.
How are they sourcing the raw material, and whether they have any raw material banks? Is the government providing any help to them in terms of raw material availability, or is there any possibility of setting up raw material banks? Are they importing the raw material or buying it from retailers in smaller quantities? So I was just trying to understand that, if you have any feedback. Otherwise we'll get this feedback later maybe. If you have any information, please give it.
Sir, largely the information which I have, it is the cluster-based program which forms a local ecosystem. The raw material, as far as in the manufacturing process is concerned, these are all available locally. So district-wise, whatever is the raw material available in that particular district, and there had been a skill which people have been using and doing it traditionally for a long time, so that had gradually been on the wane. So that is on the revival mode, sir. It is not an ecosystem on a larger basis which is being built in every district. It is only on the local base things are getting aggregated.
Okay. Thank you. Last question from Mr. Vivek Prasad. Am I audible now?
Yes, you
Am I
are.
audible? Okay. Vivekji, very small question for you to answer very briefly. This WTO regime for import of raw materials, the government has only this quantitative restrictions and tariff barriers. Do you think there is any policy strategy, any other policy strategy which the government can bring in to shift the usage procurement of material within the country instead of depending on imports?
Okay,
Am I clear, Vivekji?
I'm here.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Vivekji, you are audible.
Okay. I think the question was on whether.
So what I was asking is that whether the government has any other policy window which the government can implement with regard to reducing our dependence on the import of raw materials from other countries, other than the this. I don't know how far they can implement the tariff barriers and quantitative restrictions also.
Yeah, I think my view on that is that I think rather than focus on looking at trying to get away from raw material imports and trying to make it more indigenous, that is the core raw material, I think it would be better to look at how industry can be upgraded so that the value addition on the raw material can be improved. Because at the end of the day, if you look at any value chain, it is truly in the value addition on the raw material that the value extraction happens maximum, right? So it is not the raw material suppliers who really extract the most value in any value chain. It's usually the people who are able to value add. So I think the focus needs to be on how to upgrade manufacturing, how to improve our production processes, how to improve distribution, how to bring in technology, how to improve design, R&D, and all of these aspects that feed into the whole manufacturing system, and make sure that the value addition on the raw material is far higher than to look at trying to see how the raw material imports can be substituted. Because at the end of the day, raw material imports is, or raw material is essentially a function of the natural resources available and the ability to set up huge capacity to process these, right? Now, that is a long drawn process. It is not going to be something that can be done quickly. So, setting up refining units, or setting up raw material processing units is obviously going to be a long drawn process. It is going to be easier for us to be able to look at our production processes and try to see if we can improve the value addition on that, than to look at the raw material sourcing piece. I think that's my view on this.
Very well said. I think I fully agree with you. In fact, government of course has limited, way of doing it. It is basically building the capacities within the country and looking at the long-term solutions, in fact, to this problem, instead of totally depending and only depending on this reduction in the imports of raw material. So we have, I think we have had almost a fair view of the problem that we discussed today. All the aspects probably have been covered. So I was checking whether there are any questions, Zumair. So Damini, if there are any questions, we can take up those questions now.
Yes, sir. There are. We have questions today, and the first one is from Mr. Pradeep, who says that the government is saying support MSMEs, but we're not able to get 3 lakh crore assistance given to us, and getting loans for MSMEs is very difficult. He's in the printing and packaging industry. How can he go about it?
Well, let me answer this question, because government has laid down clear eligibility criteria for availing credit under this 3 lakh crore emergency credit line. The eligibility criteria is that you should be MSME, you should be within 100 crore turnover, below that, you should be having already a credit facility, a credit arrangement with the bank, and your outstanding should not be more than 25 crore. If it is 25 crore as on 29th February 2020, if it is up to 25 crore, you are eligible to get 20% of that existing outstanding as emergency credit line to improve your liquidity. So saying that you are not getting under the emergency credit line is probably a very, very extreme thing. If you can write the name of the bank and the branch and mention that when did you apply, because that is automatic. The banks are contacting their customers, and it is for standard accounts, not the defaulted accounts. So if you are defaulted earlier with the bank, you won't be eligible. So banks, I had a meeting with 4 chairmen of the banks yesterday. State Bank of India and Punjab National Bank, the CEOs of these banks, Axis Bank and one more. So all of them said that they are, going all out. And yesterday itself, I read the figure that 1 lakh crore has already been sanctioned out of 3 lakh. 55,000 crore has already been disbursed. So bankers said that they have contacted all their customers. Some of the customers are not interested. Some of the customers are in the process of completing the document, because they have to get the document. So I am not aware. You should get in touch with your banker if you have existing credit facilities. Yes, I can understand if you are a new borrower. If you are a new borrower, you have to apply to the bank as a new customer, not under the emergency credit line, but as a fresh applicant for sanction of credit facility. So, Damini?
Yeah, so the next one is from Mr. Ravindra Nath Gulati. He says he's already, raw material is not being available in India or being produced at present. So we are bound to get it through imports willingly or unwillingly. What is the solution in such a case?
Well, some of the raw material, as he rightly said, is not available in India, or available at a much, with much difficulty and at a higher prices. So it is a gradual shift, like APIs for drugs, for pharmaceuticals. Now these products are coming from China and other countries almost 70-80% is being imported. There are similarly other products, raw materials particularly I'm talking. If you want to have naturally mobile phone components, they come from China and other countries. You're not manufacturing here. So they are the raw material for the mobile manufacturing here. Similarly, there are other items. Now, we are not, very big producers of this crude and other petroleum products, so they are imported. Similarly, there are many other items which are imported and raw material is not available. So you can't have, readily shifting from imported to indigenous overnight. It's a gradual shift. Capacities have to be created. Enablers, input enablers, as our esteemed panelist also mentioned. So all these things will take up gradually. Until then, we have to be dependent, in fact. Yes, Sudhan.
Ms. Sarita says that for some goods we are solely dependent on China. We neither have the technology nor the capital to begin with now. How would such industries survive? Also, how can we become price competitive as customer is not willing to give that extra penny?
Can Mr. Vivek answer this?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here. So yeah, where there is no alternative, where we need to get it from China, I think that has been always the mode. I think what you will find increasingly is that there are a lot of countries which were so far not competitive because of China's dominance in the sector, but are now finding ways in which they are trying to be competitive. So because China was out of the scene for maybe a couple of months, there are countries which had a small play in these businesses, and they are slowly trying to make inroads. So companies that are looking to procure these raw materials would do well to look for alternative sources. I think there has always been a reliance on China, and therefore that is continuing. But there are opportunities, white spaces to look for alternative sources. And you might find that given the situation, these alternative sources might actually want to be extremely competitive, want to take up the opportunity because they realize that there is an opportunity for them while China is out of the game. So I think it's possible that you might find some alternatives. So that is one aspect. But I think, as I said earlier, the idea is that it's not about replacing the import sources for raw materials, but trying to see how the value addition on that can improve. So either by looking to trade up the product, looking at export markets, those are some of the ways in which the value addition and therefore realization for these products can be increased. Okay? And that then has a direct impact on profitability. So
Right.
I would say that these are some of the things that you could look at.
Yes, Sudhamini, next.
So the next one is from, they're saying, is it not time the National Industries Classification Code is updated or revised to represent the current market?
I think so. I think it's a good suggestion. NIC code is quite old, and there are many things which are not covered in the NIC code. A lot of developments and changes have taken place. So I think it's a good suggestion. We will take it up with the government. Next.
Ms. Shipra says, it seems along with COVID, China is another factor that is slowing the growth of MSME. It may take 5 to 6 years before MSMEs can really show some meaningful growth. What is the estimation of nature of development and growth of the NCR in near future?
Vivekji or Mr. Jha, Sudhir Jha, can you answer this because I didn't get it properly?
Yeah, actually, her question basically, what I understand, is aiming at the growth pattern in Delhi NCR in another upcoming 5-6 years for some estimation purpose. Sir, I would like to say that presently all the MSME units, mostly in the Delhi NCR region, is out of shape. It is not doing well. So only in few months down the line, from here, say 5-6 months, we can come to an estimation as how it is going to fare. But this is for sure that everybody has been an entrepreneur this side of the country for a long time. So something or the other, definitely people would take up But what is the way forward? How things are going to evolve? That is not clear from the MSME fraternity, I would like to say, because the earlier question, Mr. Ravinder Gulati, he is from Faridabad. I know him personally. He is into the automobile component business, and he gets some printing inks and materials from China. There is no substitute. He has invested a lot of money and has tried to develop in India. But for that particular requirement, he couldn't get a solution here. So similarly, with the present supply chain disruptions, a lot of people are thinking whether they should be changing their business, whether they should be doing something else, or what likewise. So this is little premature to reply to this question, sir.
So, Damini?
If I may
So
just
the-
add a couple of points.
Let Vivek answer, yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that actually it's difficult to take an overall view of the NCR region as such, because I think what we need to do is look at segments, and there are certain segments which may do well, certain segments which may not do so well, right? So, for example, NCR is a very strong influence of the automotive sector. There is a very large automotive cluster there, and it's quite commonly known that the automotive sector is not going to bounce back in the next 2 years or so. So all of the sectors related to the automotive sector, automotive cluster are going to feel the pinch. Right? But there are other sectors where there is going to be growth in the future because of various reasons. So things like consumer durables, consumer electronics, FMCG, pharma, these are all sectors where there is likely to be a bounce back very quickly. So I think you will see that in the next 6 months or so, people will realize that this is not something that can be wished away very quickly. So we need to get back to business as usual. I think the government has also realized that. That is why there is the whole focus on the Unlock 1.0. And they're also realizing that they cannot lock down the entire country together. They need to take pockets at a time and see where they need to do what. Right? So this kind of local local administration and driving local thinking is going to be very important. So once that happens, I think you will find that different industries work differently, and some sectors might actually see a bounce back much faster. So there is some material available on this. So if you would like to go to our website, we have put out some papers recently where we've talked about how different regions will work differently and different sectors will bounce back in different points in time. So there is some evidence, and you might want to look at that on our website.
Okay, thank you. So, Damini?
Yes, so the last question we have today is Mr. Umapati, who's asking, is there any data available for indigenous pairs as alternate for import?
Vivek, can you answer this?
Did you say indigenous pairs?
Yeah, that's right. Indigenous pairs.
Okay, I'm not sure. Could you just repeat the full question again?
Any data available for indigenous pairs as alternate for import?
For import, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question. If it is about import data, then yes, there is a fair bit of import data that is available. Of course, it's not very easily readable, so it requires a lot of sifting through to understand. But the DGFT puts out a lot of data on imports. But I'm not sure what gentleman means about when he says alternative to indigenous pairs. Okay, if I understand, are you saying is he asking about not imported spares but spares locally available?
Yes, pairs locally available to manufacture in India.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure there are enough and more companies which are manufacturing indigenous pairs. In fact, what we find in our work is that in times of distress like this, a lot of companies tend to trade down, which means that if they were buying original OEM spares or if they were buying imported spares, there is a tendency to look for indigenous spares, which brings down their cost significantly. And this is therefore a great opportunity for companies who are smaller manufacturers who are manufacturing subcomponents or assemblies, sub-assemblies to actually step up, because this is a great time for them to eat into the business of some of the larger MNCs or of the imported business, because this is the time when companies look for value alternatives.
I have a bit to add to it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Sir, government has come up very clearly with these directives to the large organizations I am in touch with, like railways and defense, that whatever is the imports happening at present, so there has to be mandatorily as a vendor development activity, all the drawings, designs to be made available to the vendors, and particularly they are small MSME vendors. Now MSME is also upgraded to 250 crores turnover. So they will share all these details and they are preparing a list of it. And if anybody is interested, I can help them to connect to the right people in these matters. If these two segments they can hook up to, they would be able to know what are the modalities around into the rest of the places.
Good, good. I think if anybody has
Sir,
any.
if I may intervene, sir, Mr. Vivek, could you please share the website that you just mentioned right now for list of imports? You just mentioned a website. If you could please just mention it again.
You can speak out.
I will put out the link in the chat window.
Okay,
That's
okay.
it. Thank you so much.
That will be fine. So Damini, there is no more question now.
No, sir, that's all for today. Thank you.
So we come to the close of this program. Before we, close, let me sum up few of the things that we have discussed and where have we reached now. In fact, one thing is clear that we are quite dependent on, imports, and especially for those products and raw materials, whether they are consumer products or, raw material for industries, which are not manufactured or maybe in short supply in India, and we have to remain dependent on imports from other countries. There are certain products, certain other materials which, by virtue of the policy changes, can be made available easily for the industry in India through like barriers, as I mentioned, putting barriers, but within the regime of WTO. Another important aspect which Vivek also mentioned is the capacity building. Basically, we have to plan to gradual shift from imports to import dependence to indigenization, and through that plan, selecting the sectors and then working on those sectors, providing like input enablers, as he mentioned, technology and access to finance, and also skilling of the people, because that is also very important. So providing these enablers through policy framework and also preparing our organizations to be helpful. It should not happen that you announce a policy and then provide for like funding also, but the implementing agencies, the organizations, as we have seen in our country, are lethargic and not very cooperative, because they protect their own turf, and for any reason, because of the inefficiency or because of the lack of interest or saving their own ground. So these enablers have to take into account all these problems and inefficiencies and come out wholeheartedly with proper plan, so that this gradual shift, it can't be overnight, it has to be gradual, whether it is bringing industries from China to relocate to India, or it is shifting our focus, shifting our priorities from imported to indigenous products, building the capacities in the country. These are the main features which are very important, and I'm sure the government at various level keeps working, but the people in general are very emotional and they keep on emotions. So what we have done is we have analyzed with the help of our experts. Mr. Jha also has given very important inputs, the practical insight as to what the industry is facing at the ground level. So I am thankful to Mr. Jha and Vivek and the team which put in place all these issues. Well, thanks to the participants, and my thanks to, of course, we have to thank Vadvani Foundation, who is a co-partner for us, and Power to SME, of course, team led by Ms. Sudha Sareen, who is the Senior Vice President and basically the brain behind putting in place these programs, and my colleagues Sumer and Sodhamini, who are backroom, hardworking people who are working 24 hours without being seen, in fact, working. So they put in place everything, they have to tie up all these nitty-gritties and then put in place this entire program. So thank you all, thank you distinguished participants, and thank you all the participants. Thank you very much. See you then. Over to you, Zubair.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for conducting such a well-knitted discussion, linking aspect and giving it a more holistic and complete outlook. And I thank Mr. Sudhir Jha and Mr. Vivek for joining in, and all the participants for sparing out time and be the part of this discussion. So till we meet again, have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you all.